Hey everybody, welcome back to AAmbulance Studios. My guest today is Bill Landry from Landry Amps. He's based out of Bay Springs, Mississippi, and he makes boutique hand-wired all-tube amplifiers, and they sound phenomenal. So tonight we just talk about what got him into making amps, kind of how his amps work, what's unique about his amps, why he does everything. Really awesome guy. He really knows his stuff when it comes to amps. So it was a good time talking with him. We did have a few connection issues during the call, so we had to kind of cut it short. So we didn't get into everything that we wanted to talk about, but that's okay. Maybe we'll have him back on another day. So let's just jump right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Landry from Landry Amps. Hey man, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So where I originally discovered your amps, I guess, is I played in a band with a guy named Glenn King, and he said he knew you from back in the day, and he shows up one day with one of your amps, and I was like, I've never heard of a Landry amp before. I was like, what is this? And he had the L30 amp.
LS30.
LS30, yeah, and he brought that in and set it up. He had a 4x12 1960 Marshall, and it just sounded so good. I was like, damn, where'd this amp come from? And he would like tweak it and like, because it was a cover band, so we'd play this band song and he would go and tweak it a little bit, and it would sound just like the album of each of the different bands we were playing. It would cover clean, like the heavy stuff, everything, and it really impressed me, which is why I reached out to you, is because I remember him saying you were relatively local, right? I think you're in Bay Springs?
Right.
Yeah, I actually grew up in Soso, and my mom lives in Stringer.
Oh, really?
So it's right around the area. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on Highway 528, right where it meets 17.
Yeah.
So you go right into Stringer on 17, or 15, either way.
Yeah.
But,
she lives back kind of behind the high school in Stringer area. So that's where
I've only been here I've been here only a little less than a year, so I don't know the area real well, but I know from here to Laurel pretty good.
Yeah. That's kind of where you got to go, I guess, is Laurel or Mize or something. I don't know too much that far besides Soso and Laurel area, but
yeah. So it's funny. See, Glenn and I were in a band together when we were 17. We're the same age, basically.
Oh, yeah?
And I remember Glenn, he was so shy. He was extremely shy. And I was pretty shy. How we ever got to be musicians being so shy, I don't know how that happened. But we had a band, and I'll never forget this. It's like it was yesterday. Before how the band got together, there was a guy named Robert Sullivan. And he's still around in Louisiana playing music. And he had the coolest place. I mean, his parents had a room set up for him that was not connected to the house. It was just a place he could live and play music. It was basically a big room with a bathroom and a bed, and then he had his drums, he had his keyboards, he was a really good keyboard player. His guitar and amps, bass, guitar and amps. He had the whole thing, so people could just show up and play.
Yeah.
And me and a brother of mine, that's a bass player, we went over to Robert's house. We didn't know Robert real well, but we knew him through one of our older brothers. And so we showed up there, and we had just learn some stuff, some Rush off of Farewell to Kings. And so Robert was playing the drums, and which he wasn't much of a drummer then, but he was faking his way through Farewell to King. I mean, Xanadu, the song. And in walks this guy I'd never seen before, and picks up a mic, grabs the album cover where the lyrics were, and starts singing Xanadu. Freaked me right out. Turns out they had band practice, and we showed up right before. Robert never said anything about it. Next guys start walking in the door, the rest of the band. But they didn't have a bass player. And there was only one guitar player. Glenn didn't play guitar back then. He only played keys. And so that we ended up putting a band together with all of us. And there were 2 lead singers, and we could cover just about anything. And we played Boston. We played Rush. We played Foreigner. We played some of the top 40 stuff that was on Commodores. But I was still in high school, and so was Glenn. And right around the time I got out of high school, I ended up having to quit the band. And I never saw Glenn again.
Wow.
Until we connected on Facebook. I guess it was a couple of years ago. And I came out with the LS30. The very first one, I think Glenn got either the very first one or the second one, but he didn't buy it from me. The first 2 guys that bought them were friends in New York City. Mm-hmm. And one found out about it, told the other one, and they both ordered one at St. So they got number 1 and number 2. Both of those guys had decided they were going to sell the amp before it even arrived. Things had happened in their life that made them change their course. So Glenn got to buy one of those at a discount. And then last year, right after I moved here, or not long after I moved here, it was still warm. It was before winter. Glenn brought his over for me to update it a little bit. But this is after he was already out of the band with you guys, I believe.
Yeah.
But it was neat seeing him. And it's funny because I haven't seen him since 1979.
Wow.
But I could have picked Glenn out of a room anywhere. A lot of people you can't, after that much time, they look so different. But Glenn, I'm like, whoop, there's Glenn. No problem recognizing him.
Yeah, that's crazy, though. He was a phenomenal monster guitar player. So you just give him the guitar and he'll just go. He can play anything you throw at him. So he played keys, though. He played both. Sang, played keys, guitar, everything in the band. So
yeah.
But
what a valuable asset in a band to have a guy that plays keys really good and guitar.
Yeah, and he knew all the songs as well. So he didn't really. Once we started playing some newer stuff, he would have to learn them. But all the other anything older, he was just I already know that. I know it. I know the solo. I know everything. So it was really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So what got you into building amps? I'm not even sure how that process works, to go about even building an amp. But what made you want to start building amps?
I was not playing music at the time. I pretty much given up on trying to have a career in music, and which I pursued all the way to 96. And but it was in 2000, I think. I met this guy. I went over to his house to buy a car stereo for my wife. And this guy had bought out the inventory of some store that had closed. So I go in his house and he's got a brand new PRS McCarty and a little Sundown combo amp in his living room. I'm like, oh, you play guitar? He says, yeah, you? So we start talking about guitars and he ends up turning on the amp. He wanted me to check it out and see what I thought about the guitar and amp. And played on it for a few minutes, and I really didn't like it at all. It was not the kind of amp that suits the way I play. And I didn't know the guy. I didn't want to be rude. And so I played, and I was just struggling. And after a couple of minutes, I just put it down. I'm like, and he looks at me, and he could see I wasn't like thrilled with his stuff. He says, "Well, so you don't like it?" And I go, "Well, no, it's just not really the kind of gear that I would use." And he said, "What would you use?" And I told him, and he says, "Well, what didn't you like about this?" And not knowing the guy, I didn't know if he really wanted to know what I thought, but it turns out he did. And so we ended up talking about the kind of tone and feel of the amp and the guitar and all. And he says, "Yeah, I just bought this thing and I'm trying to decide whether or not I like it." And he said, "I think I'm going to return it." And so we ended up doing the stereo. I bought the stereo from him, and I'm driving away, and I thought, I don't remember ever meeting a guitar player that was completely satisfied with his amp. I was never satisfied with an amp, and I did back in like '83. A lot of hunting for an amp, and you always end up settling on something. And you can, if you're in a band, you make it work, but that doesn't mean you're really happy with it, And so it's a weird thing to realize. So, at that time, and then the next thing was, well, I guess I got to learn how to build one, and it's an extremely foreign thought because I knew nothing about electronics. I built a couple of guitars, and I've done a lot of woodworking and mechanic work and construction work and those kind of things, but working with my hands, but never electronics. And it was intimidating. I didn't even know didn't know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
And then the idea kept coming back in my head, and I thought, well, I'm a Christian, and I'm into the Bible and all. I'm not religious, but I am a Christian. And I thought, well, God, is this your idea? Because this is not something that I would think. And the idea kept coming back day after day. So I said, well, God, if this is your idea, you're going to have to show me what to do, because I have no clue. I don't have the money to put into whatever might be involved equipment-wise. I didn't know where to proceed. And the next thing I know, doors are opening. I start getting tips on my carpet jobs and just crazy stuff. People coming into my life that I need to know what they know and things like that. It just went on. It was very exciting. And so I ended up taking a little course at a community college in right near where we lived in the St. Louis area. And so I get through with this course, and I'm like, well, I still know nothing about amps. It was just basic, well, here's what electricity does. This is AC and DC, and this is what a resistor is, and this is what a capacitor is. This is what they do to an electrical signal. But I still knew nothing about circuits or amps. But now I wasn't afraid of electricity. I understood a little bit about it. And then I start... it was just crazy. I found one book called Inside Tube Amps, and it was basic information on how to build a very basic circuit, and it taught really good stuff about power supplies and some things you need to know about how circuits do what they do with tube amps. And from there, it was just experimenting. Every day I get home from work and I go down to the basement and spend hours soldering. I go to estate sales and buy old tube stereo equipment and take it apart, take the transformers, take the tubes. And you can get the stuff for like $10, $5, $15, just stuff really cheap. Take it home, break it all apart, throw away everything I don't want, and then use the electronic stuff. 5 years later, I designed my first amp and built the first prototype. And the learning never stops, to be honest with you. I'm still learning.
Yeah.
Finding new things to try, and which leads to new amp models, basically.
Yes.
So I've got the LS100 G3. It started with an LS100. That was the original model that I came out with. And then I came out with one called the LS100M, which stood for modified, which kind of took it in a different direction, but it was basically the same circuit. And then a few months after that, I came up with another one that took it in a different direction, closer to the original, but different. And I'm like, man, 3 different amps that are so close. So I dropped 2 of them and kept the one I thought was the best, which was the G3, the 3rd generation. And that's my main amp now, the LS100 G3 or LS50, 50 watt or 100 watt. So the LS30 the idea was to take the normal distortion channel. See, the G3 has a clean channel, a designated clean channel. It's got its own gain, treble, mid, bass, and a channel volume. And then there's a distortion channel with a gain control, treble, mid, bass, and a channel volume. And then there's, on a foot switch, you can hit, it's like a boost. It adds another gain stage, which has another gain control. So there's the 3 levels of distortion in the G3. Well, after a few years of having that designed, the G3, I realized that, man, I could gig with this thing on one channel. I could set it on the what I call the red channel, which is the normal distortion channel, not the high gain. And I could do just about any kind of covers that I've ever done just on that channel. The LS30 was to be a small, low wattage version of that red channel.
Okay.
Well, I ended up making it 3 channels as well, sort of. But it's a cool little amp. It's a little different than the G3. The feel and tone of it is a little different than the G3, but it became kind of its own thing.
Yeah.
And I really like it.
Well, I mean, personally, I prefer a smaller, lower wattage amp. Like, I have a couple of 20-watt heads, and then one of the main ones I've always used, you might not can see it, but it's a Fender Deluxe, so it's like 40 watts. I do have some 100-watt amps, but I've always really liked the little, I guess, they call them maybe lunchbox style. They're like, smaller. Yeah. I've always kind of liked those. So I kind of like, that's why I kind of gravitated towards the LS30, because I really like the compact type of amp,
It's so easy to pick up and carry. I mean,
yes.
But it doesn't sound small. It sounds like a big amp.
Yeah.
And that's what I was shooting for. I'm like, I don't want to build an amp that's just a dinky sounding little amp, something that I wouldn't want to use.
Like a toy?
I don't want to build anything that I won't use.
Yeah. And
so it's got EL34s that's just running on a much lower voltage, which brings the wattage down pretty severely. From instead of being a 50 watt, it's 30 watts with the same tubes as a 50 watt.
Okay.
The transformers are different, everything. So,
what made you go with EL34s over like a 6L6 or something like that?
I've always been, when I was coming up playing music, in the vein of rock, like what I was interested in, everybody played Marshalls.
Yeah.
All my favorite guitar players, almost all my favorite guitar players played Marshalls. And so I figured, well, that's what I got to have. Well, I never played one that I liked, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I was very disappointed. But I knew I liked EL34 too, the tubes that Marshalls used. So when I designed my own, I wanted it to be based on that. EL34s and those transformers. But the rest was my idea. I wasn't going to copy Marshall because I didn't like them.
Yeah.
But I wasn't a Fender guy either. My first amp was an old Fender Bassman. Yeah. And I loved that amp, but it didn't have enough gain.
Oh, yeah.
And it really wasn't very loud.
Oh, yeah.
I was never able to turn up loud enough in every band I was in, and it was frustrating. So anyway, when I came to designing my own, I wanted EL34s for that kind of a rock tone. You can put 6L6s in the LS30 and it sounds great. I had them in mind for a little while, and it's a different thing. And I do have another model for 6L6. It's called the M100L. I told you earlier about the LS100M.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a few years after I came out with it and then discontinued it right away, I really wanted to build that amp, and I had learned some more things about how to make it better in the process of learning about my G3 more. Constantly doing experimenting and learning. So, but I wanted to do a 6L6 amp because I do like 6L6s. They're just different than what I was shooting for with my original design. And so I came up with the M100L, which has 6L6s, and the M50V, which has 4 6V6s. Same circuit, but they're different transformers and different tubes. And they're both really cool amps. Yeah. I don't have one on hand, and I've only sold a few of each of those. But the guys that have them really like them. The fact that I have a customer in Finland that has an M50V, and he's had the amp for like 4 years, and he just emailed me last week or the week before just to tell me how much he loved the amp.
That's always good to hear.
Here's a guy. Yeah, I mean, he's in Finland, and our lives aren't connected except every time he plugs in that amp, it's got my name on it, and he just decided to email me and tell me how much he loved it. He's doing some studio work, and he played a gig recently and had got great comments on his tone, and then he's going in the studio, and people are acknowledging his tone is really good. And so, I don't know, he emailed me and told me about it. I thought that was just so cool. It's very gratifying to build something that when somebody else plugs into it, it thrills them, because as a guitar player, you know how that feels. You can plug into one amp, and it makes you want to play. You plug into another amp, and you struggle, you fight it, because it's not giving you what you want. So it's not about, is the amp good? Is this amp good and this amp bad? That's not what it is. Does this amp match your playing? See, this amp might match your playing, and that amp matches somebody else's playing. And we all, as guitar players, have to find the one that fits what we do. It's what's in here,
Yeah.
What we want to hear, what we want to feel.
Yeah, the easiest to get out what you got in here. And that's why there's so many, different amps. Because they all do something different, which, I've been playing amps before and be like, I'm just not feeling it today. I'm going to put my guitar down. And then I'll be like, well, let me switch to this amp real quick. And then I'll play for another 2 hours. Just, nothing's different except for I just plugged into the amp and it was singing to me that day instead of not. So.
Yeah, that's why we need multiple amps.
That's what I tell my wife, She's like, you got one. You got an amp. You got a guitar. Why do you need 6 of them? Like, they're all different, They each do something different.
Kind of like her shoes.
It's like, why don't you just have one pair of sneakers? That's what I'm going to say next time. You just need one pair of sneakers. Then. That's awesome. That's it. I got a new thing. So I noticed, and you on your amp, you said, I went through and watched some of your videos where you were talking about the amps, and there's a switch or a knob that's called, you call it, Mesas call it like a resonance. I think that's what it's called, but it's a depth knob.
So, yeah, I have a depth control or a resonance control. It's the same thing. And what that is, it's kind of like it's sort of a bass control on the power amp section rather than the preamp. kind of like your presence knob is a treble control in the power amp.
I never knew that.
The resonance, I mean, there are amps that do something they call presence in the preamp, but it's different. It's not the same thing as presence in the power amp. Typically, it's in the power amp. Some amps don't even have a presence control. They just kind of lock it into a certain frequency response, and that's it. But a lot of old Fenders did not have presence. I don't know what newer Fenders do, but anyway, so the depth is the bass end of the power amp. The presence is the high end of the power amp. And yeah, it makes a huge difference.
Is that, to me, it's always felt like that lets you keep the volume low, but then still get like the feeling of the amp being really loud.
Yeah,
I guess
it's kind of like that. I was going to say it's kind of like a loudness knob on an old stereo. I don't know if these stereos have that, but I know in the old days, back in the 70s, you would have a loudness button, and it would do that. So if you play in at low volume, it would increase the bass response, so it would feel more like it's loud.
Yeah,
that's kind of what it is. Yeah. In a live situation, you probably wouldn't use much of the depth control because you'd be conflicting with the bass guitar.
Mm-hmm.
You want to kind of trim the lows so that you kind of cut your own spot in the mix rather than fighting with the bass. But when you're playing by yourself, it's nice to be able to turn the depth up.
Yeah.
And or another way you could approach it is turn the depth up, even in a live situation, but turn your bass and your preamp down,
mm-hmm.
and you get a different sort of blend of the bass frequencies. You limit them in the preamp, but it still has a different feel turning the depth down and turning the bass up versus turning the bass down and turning the depth up. It's just another thing that guitar players like to tweak. You know.
Yeah, I mean, there's some guitar players that want a volume knob and nothing else, and then there's some that want everything that they can mess with. You know,
right?
I kind of, if I'm playing live, sometimes I just want a simple amp. You know, turn up the highs, lows, gain. But when I'm at the house, sometimes I want like 5 EQ knobs and every kind of knob you can get on the amp just to mess around. You know, the house, I guess.
Well. When I designed my amps, I wanted simplicity. You know, originally there was no depth control, there was no bright switch. It was just gain, treble, mid, bass for each channel, and then an overall master volume and presence and reverb. Because I like simplicity, especially if you're in a live situation. If you're on stage, trying to tweak when you're on stage when you got too many options can be a nightmare.
Yeah,
you can get lost. You can lose your sound while you're frantically trying to get it right. And when you have treble, mid, bass, and presence, those things are easy to deal with, and you got your gain control and your overall volume, your master volume. Very easy, and with chicken head knobs, you can see them in the dark.
Yeah,
you can easily go over. You know where your buttons are, and you know if you need to go up a little bit, or because I don't know if you've ever gigged much. There's times when the lights are dim, and you need to quickly during a song or for something. You got to do it quickly. You got to. What's the problem with the sound? Is the mid range wrong? Is the highs wrong? You got to be able to see it and react quickly. And if you're going to quickly throw your hand over and make a change and get back to your guitar, well, did you go too much?
Yeah.
Did you go not enough? You know? With the chicken head knobs, you can see exactly where they are. And those I use specifically for live situations.
Yeah. So, some of the knobs are just, black notched little things, and you got to hope that you can find that little white line they drew on there. And, see where it is. Chicken heads, you can just feel where it is, essentially, even if you're not looking.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome, though. So you were explaining about a bright switch that you have, And you, as you were explaining it, I remember sitting there going, I just need to ask him about it. But like you turn it on, you said the more you turn it down, the brighter it gets.
Oh, that's not a bright switch. That's on the clean channel.
Uh huh.
Instead of having it on a switch, it's actually on the gain control.
Okay.
And the way it works, when you turn the gain control all the way up, it basically bypasses the capacitor that makes it bright. So the capacitor has no effect. But as you turn down, the resistance, I don't want to try to get technical, but
That's fine.
it's just the way it works. As you turn down, the resistance of the volume pot causes the frequencies to try to pass through the capacitor, which is only high frequencies can do that. So the ratio of high frequencies to all the other frequencies change. So you end up kind of turning down all the bass, and the highs are staying there. So you get the impression that you're producing more highs. You're really not. You're just changing the balance. It's all still there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you've reshaped it.
So
It's kind of like. Uh,
I was just gonna say it's like a volume knob on the guitar. Sometimes when you turn the volume down, you'll actually lose some highs on some guitars. Is that kind of what it's kind of trying to mimic? So you can turn it down and not lose.
no, no. It's actually, see, on my clean channel, I have two different clean channels. One I call the pure clean, and one I call the dirty clean.
Mm-hmm.
On the pure clean channel, it's basically another tone shaping. You can take that volume knob, since you have a channel volume as well.
Mm-hmm.
You can take the gain knob and use it as part of your tone shaping. If you turn it all the way up, it gets warmer, and that's going to be too loud on your channel volume. So you bring your channel volume down to maintain the same signal level, because it has an effects loop, and your channel volumes are also your effects sends. So you use them to blend between clean channel and distortion channel, but they also are your effects send levels. So if you turn the gain knob down, you're really not changing the gain, because on that channel there's not much gain to be had.
Mm-hmm.
So you're changing the tone. You're changing the upper highs of the tone. And then you also still have your treble, mid, and bass to balance everything out. But it's a major difference whether you have the gain knob at 12 o'clock versus dimed. It's a major difference in the perceived highs. So
That's really cool. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that. Is that a common thing, or is that something you kind of?
Well, no, it's common. A lot of amps had it. Old Marshalls had it. Those amps were incredibly bright, and nobody was turning them up when they first came out. That wasn't the idea. You don't turn the amp all the way up.
Yeah.
With no master volume, that was just incredibly loud. But then guys found out, well, hey, if you turn it up, it sounds smoother. It's just too dang loud. So then later, master volumes come in. But a lot of people they'd have a tech go in and pull that cap out, just cut it out, so that there is no change in brightness as you turn down. And there were a lot of Fenders that had a switch to where the bright cap is still wired the same way as I do it, except they put it on a switch so you can take it off. You can just disconnect it. So it has no effect when you turn it up or down. But I don't know, I like versatility, so it's like, okay, I gotta have it in there, and you can just turn your knob where you want it to get the brightness.
Yeah.
So,
That's pretty cool. I like that. I'll have to try that one day. I was just gonna say that it's interrupting so much. It's kind of hard to go back and forth. So we might just need to wrap it up. So
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to get anything. I was hoping to kind of get into some of the inner workings of an amp and stuff, but maybe we can have another one sometime when things are working better or something.
Yeah.
I really,
Yeah, maybe.
yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. It was really interesting talking about your amps and everything. I really hate that the connections going in and out, but I really do appreciate you coming on. It was really awesome.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So everybody can go to your website. You got a Facebook to order your amps or talk with you about building one and things like that.
Yeah, the best way to contact me is through the website or email me, because it all has to be done through email.
Okay.
So bill@landryamps.com. My phone number's on the website. You can call me or email me. So that's the way. I mean, you can find me on Facebook, but I'd rather have all my communications through my email. That way I have it all in one place.
Yeah, that makes
Trying to do some from email and some from Facebook, it gets confusing. It's like, well, where did I talk to this guy?
Yeah.
I always direct people to my email.
All right. Cool, man.
So, and I have a YouTube channel.
So YouTube, Facebook, but check in with email if you want to purchase an amp. But you can see everything on YouTube and pictures on the website and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, man, it was great talking to you about your amps and all that stuff. You make some really awesome amps, really great sounding amps. I was super impressed with them. I guess I'll just talk with you soon. I appreciate you coming on again, man.
Yeah, maybe we can do this with a better connection sometime.
Yeah. I really wanted to get into the deep inner workings of an amp because I'm an amp head. I love amps. So
okay.
Maybe at another time.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool, man. I appreciate it.
Well, have a good night.
All right, you too, man. See ya.